Hey. Time for another out-of-this-world story from our space. From open marriages gone awry to chance run-ins with scandalous exes, maybe you'll find a negative wisdom amidst the chaos, or maybe you'll just have a good darn time. Today on our space, let's roll the dice and see where love takes us today. Up first, OP finds himself at a crossroads, torn between salvaging his relationship and forging a new path forward. Wife, 36 female, wanted an open marriage after I, 38 male, started dating. She wants to add more roles. What would you do in my position? 2.5 years ago, my wife, Sarah, 36 female, asked me to open our marriage. She strongly implied the alternative was divorce. After thinking it through, I said yes, primarily because we do have 2 children. I worked long hours and divorce sounded horrible. So I set up some ground rules. No bringing dates into our house. No dating mutual friends, acquaintances, family members, colleagues, keeping things private. For the next 2 years, I focused on my job and on my kids. I worked long hours. Little free time I had, I devoted to my kids. I didn't have the time for dating, so I wasn't even trying. I moved to another room because the thought of Sarah having sex with another man, then sleeping in my bed felt horrible. Our relationship became purely transactional. We became partners at raising kids. I didn't want to know anything about her sex life. This summer, I managed to fulfill my financial goals. I do not have any debt whatsoever. Both of my kids have enough money in their college fund, and all I have to do is keep adding savings every month into the fund I made for their first home deposits. So I did some math and decided to cut my work from 74 hours to just 30 per week. Sarah wanted to get indebted again to buy another house and a new car. I said no. I used my free time to finally have a vacation I really needed. Took the older son with me to tour the US together. Did some renovation work on her house. Turned the basement into a man cave. Started working out, playing sports, leading a healthier life. Then I actually started trying to land a date. For me, just having sex with somebody is not my thing. I wanted to at least be a friend before that. To go out together, watch movies, have fun, and have sex. So I dated a couple of women and found a Jane with whom I clicked. With Jane, I was going out to concerts, art galleries, Comic-Cons, movies, and we would boink too. Sarah wanted to talk about my dates. I said no. Then I caught Sarah stooping to my phone, and we had a very strong-worded argument. Now Sarah wants to update the terms of our open marriage. She wants us to repair our marriage by going to a counselor. She wants us to sleep in the same room, to go outside and have fun together. Our outside of marriage relationships are to be strictly sexual and nothing else. And we are to talk about our sexual partners. I told her that I'm content with the situation as it is, and I don't mind if she finds a partner to go out with. I encourage her to, and I don't want to talk about her partners. She's holding her ground. At this point, I'm split between trying to fix our marriage and handing her divorce papers. I need advice, guys. Here's some relevant comments that the OP said, replying to a few comments. Van, you were working 74 hours per week and spending your free time with the kids. After she decided to open her marriage, at which point I pretty much focused on completing financial goals as soon as possible. I was working longer hours before that, but not that long, and I was finding time to spend with Sarah. Now that you have the free time, you're still choosing not to see your wife. I actually left her to initiate that. If she wished to, she didn't. So yeah, she probably just didn't estimate you'd be having full-on simultaneous relationships. Except I'm not having 2 simultaneous relationships. Since Sarah decided to open her marriage, the 2 of us didn't have any intimate moments. We didn't sleep together. We didn't go outside together. After I switched to working 30 hours, she didn't initiate to change anything. Our relationship with co-parenting under the same roof, really. Once I started dating other women, she started stooping around. Once she found out I was dating Jane, she wanted to change the roles. Even then, she said nothing about closing the relationship, just changed to only having sex outside the marriage, which boils down to me not being able to have a single intimate relationship. Update, January 29th, 2024. It sounds like you did a little bit less of opening your marriage and sort of just gave your wife permission to cheat and call it spicing things up or keeping things exciting. As soon as she found out you actually wanted some emotional connection, she cuts it off because only she can have fun with other people. How dare you try to actually enjoy the experience, OP? Update. Several people asked for an update on my previous post. So here it is. Me and my wife Sarah had 2 sessions with a couples counselor. The counselor was being very dedicated and professional. However, Sarah kept making demands which felt very unreasonable and unfair. She wants to keep an open relationship, which is only about sex. She doesn't want to find a job and keep working. She wants us to buy a new house. In every variation, she stubbornly wasn't to have 2/3 of these things. Today, during the counseling, she threatened divorce. After counseling, she said the counselor was taking my side and wanted to change to another counselor. Although I think the counselor was just trying to be fair and find a compromise. I had a talk with the lawyer and started divorce proceedings. She will get the papers in a couple of days. I will give her 2 months to start earning on her own, and after that, I'm not giving any money whatsoever to her anymore. P.S. I just wanted to add that I only started working 74 hours a week after she decided to open her marriage. Before that, I was working around 50 hours a week, wasn't spending my time at bars and clubs either. Helped with chores as much as I could, and I was being home and available every weekend. Let's see what the community has to say. First up, wife. You know what'll fix this relationship? Buying another house and husband going back to working 70 plus hours a week. That way there's no time for other relationships. And I can have my cake and eat it too. Someone else adds, oh, I hadn't considered the possibility that opening the marriage might mean that he'd benefit too. Might be time for another ultimatum. The next person adds, I'm turning into an unskippable cutscene in Derby. You know that example of crappy partner wants permission to F other people. It's surprising to find out they are, in fact, a crappy partner, and their significant other can do better. Not quite cake eatery territory, but not far from it. And one more person chimes in. She tried to be a cake eater when she said, hey, let's take on more debt so that you can keep working 74 hours a week and I can spend your money with my lover. Good thing he stood his ground. It's clear that you've made efforts to adapt to the open marriage arrangement, but it seems like your wife's expectations and demands have become unreasonable and unfair. Seeking counseling was a positive step, but if your wife is unwilling to work towards a fair compromise, your choice to go forward with divorce proceedings is a smart one. Your decision to establish boundaries and take control of your own happiness is commendable, OP. And like the comment said, she just wanted to fool around with other people while her husband was out paying the bills and buying a brand new home for her to take to her boy toys to. She's in for a rude awakening. What would you have done? What do you make of OP's soon-to-be ex giving him an ultimatum? Next up, a bit of the Jelly Bellies. After we, me 35 female, open up our relationship, younger men have been throwing themselves at me. Husband, 40 male, is displeased. I'm a 35 female. Husband is 40 male. We agreed to open up our marriage. I am LL and wasn't very interested in sex, and he is HL. Since we opened up our marriage, mostly younger men have been throwing themselves at me. I have been very picky, but there are a lot of them. My partner is a younger man who's unexpectedly attractive to me. He is the physically opposite of my husband. My husband is very displeased. He feels emasculated. I don't want to close my side of the relationship, but I don't want him hounding me for sex. Is there a compromise we can reach? Why does he feel this way when it was his idea and he is also getting action? Let's see what some of the relevant comments have to say. First up, he doesn't want to open your relationship. He wants to have sex while you don't. The OP replies, that's why we opened it. He said he couldn't stand not having his needs met. The next person says, if you open things because of your low libido, it could be hitting him hard emotionally. If you're now far more sexually active with others than you were with him, you're not doing anything wrong, but I could definitely see him having anxiety about your romantic and sexual feelings towards him. The OP replies, I'm not far more sexually active with my other partner. I am happy with once a week, but our styles match up more than mine and my husband. My husband is explorative and likes partners who are ready to go whenever, wherever. He is happy with his partners, as far as I know. They have a lot of kinks they are exploring. I need non-sexual affection, kissing, foreplay to be in the mood. I prefer a delicate, more sensual touch. I still find my husband attractive, but I can't get aroused instantly and be ready to go. It's painful and it feels like a chore half the time. I don't think he finds me that attractive anymore, but that's life. Some folks don't actually understand what an open relationship is actually about. Open relationships are relationships just like any other. There are boundaries just like a monogamous relationship. Maybe sometimes cheaters use open relationships as an excuse to have relations with others and for their partners to be okay with it as it happens right under their nose. Maybe that's because people don't actually sit down and discuss the full parameters of it all and what it means to both of them. Open relationships aren't always just about what happens in bed. Update. I, 35 female, have talked with my husband, 40 male, and we have more clarity where we stand. To clarify, I am still low libido. I'm happy with once a week or every 2 weeks. My husband is explorative and likes partners who are ready to go whenever, wherever. He has a lot of kinks that they are exploring. I need non-sexual affection, kissing, foreplay to be in the mood. I prefer a delicate, more sensual touch. I still find my husband incredibly attractive, but I can't get aroused instantly and be ready to go. It's painful and feels like a chore half the time. I know he doesn't find me as attractive. He told me he needed his needs met, and I couldn't fulfill them. We opened up the relationship. My husband and I had sex once since it began. He had learned things from his partners. We both hated it. I didn't like him yanking my hair hard or wrapping his hand around my throat, let alone the kinker stuff he wanted. He hated how frigid it was. My husband needs sex to be affectionate, but we weren't having it, so he told me to go find affection somewhere else. I tried dating apps, but I wasn't interested in hookups. I really wanted affection, romantic or platonic. Ironically, men my age or older were looking for younger women or hookups. Younger men and women were more likely to want affection. I ended up meeting my partner in person for a mutual hobby. I also made some friends through friendship apps. My husband and I have and can do our own thing separately, but my partner needs a lot of time, affection, and attention from me. He gets a bit territorial. I don't think he feels threatened by my husband, but my husband has remarked that my partner is always over. My husband has an apartment for his partners and lets me use the house. Finally, I talked with my husband on why he feels emasculated. He says he is over jealousy about me, but he is jealous about partners. He says that my partner and the men I attract are far more attractive than I should have been able to get. It made no sense as I have aged and don't look as attractive as I did back when I was 20. Meanwhile, he should be in the peak of his attractiveness. He's very put together, and he expected that as an attractive older man with disposable cash that women would be flocking to him. They do, but he doesn't like them for various reasons. Attractive young women want him to spend a lot of cash. They're uninterested in an equal relationship and expect him to spoil them. They're bratty and entitled. Attractive young women who don't want money have mental health issues. Young women in the kink community and who are poly were ugly. Would-be mistresses would leave when they found out he was in an open marriage. I don't know what to say. I can't help him with his problem. Edit. My husband and I both thought that I would only get men interested in no-strings sex or one-night stands, which I would not be interested in, rather than a close, affectionate, frankly committed relationship that I desired and filtered for. Surprisingly, there are men who wanted the latter. Edit 2. There are a lot of comments saying my husband has few prospects or he isn't getting as much action as he thought. This is untrue. He's a very handsome man and has been with several women since we opened up. A lot of women are attracted to him. He has sex with beautiful women, kinky women, accomplished women. He should be happy. At this point, I think he's just looking for something to be unhappy about. There is no perfect partner that meets his requirements. Now let's get some relevant comments from the community. So basically, you want some beautiful woman in her prime who has a successful career to have disposable income for and great mental health to be settled at being his mistress. Oh yeah, can't forget the fact he expects her to have sex on demand and be very kinky. It looks like he has very high standards. The OP replies, also someone who is kinky and sexually open to do a lot of things. I told him he should compromise, but he's unwilling because he's found plenty of women who fulfill some of his expectations, so he thinks he can find someone who will fulfill all of them. I don't think he's looking for a person, just a manifestation of all his desires. Sounds like your husband is looking for a fantasy, an itch that it can't quite be scratched. And it sounds like it's all a him problem. The fact that he's jealous is not your problem at all. He agreed to the open marriage and now he's upset that you're behaving as if it's open. How does that make sense? Seems like he's realizing that an open relationship isn't quite what he expected. Whatever it is, you guys aren't on the same page. What do you make of all this? Finally, a daughter who wasn't interested in a trip down memory lane. I have no idea on how to proceed with this one. My wife and I just met my father-in-law's middle school and high school sweetheart, who cheated and left him for his best friend. She recognized my wife as his daughter the second she saw her. My question is, why now? Why after 34 years? What was she trying to accomplish by ambushing and upsetting my wife? Also, any advice on how to resolve this would be appreciated as I have no idea on what to do or how to approach this. I cannot talk to my father-in-law, at least not at the moment, as he is a truck driver and is currently somewhere in Central Europe. And while on the road driving, anything that can distract him from the road, outside of absolute emergency, is absolutely off limits. I apologize in advance for the rate that I might be responding, anxiety, but I will read everything and would be grateful for any bit of advice or share opinion that you can give me. So we go to town next to ours because I had work to do there. Rain started pouring and my shoes were soaked in seconds. Thanks to a recommendation of a friend of ours, we entered a shop that had very good quality shoes, imported from Germany. The lady started staring at my wife the second she saw her. She still gave me good shoes, and I bought them, plus warm socks that she gave me as a gift. Then she asked my wife if she was from our hometown, to which she replied yes. Then she asked her if she was my father-in-law's daughter. My wife was a little taken aback by the directness of the question, but still confirmed. Then the lady revealed that she and him dated all the way from middle school to the end of high school when she left him, but when she returned, he had moved on. She was alone for some time, but ultimately moved on as well and got married to her husband, who was from this town, and she moved in with him here. She then complimented my wife and told her that last she saw her was when she was 10. Wife is 31 now. She asked my wife many questions about man laws, and my wife answered several times before I came to my senses, and upon seeing how upset my wife was getting, gave an excuse for us to leave. Father-in-law's ex sent us a hi to my father-in-law and told us not to be strangers. My wife started crying the second we left the shop, and honestly, the way she was ambushed, I do not blame her. I blame myself for not reacting quicker. If I did, I could have spared her at least more of the situation. On the ride back, my wife was very quiet, which was unusual for her to be. When we got home, my mother-in-law, who was watching our kids, greeted us at the door, and my wife gave her a long, silent hug, which was a clear sign of how upset she was, and just left for our bedroom. My mother-in-law was puzzled, and I told her everything. She took it relatively calm and told me what my father-in-law's ex left out. She had cheated with his best friend since childhood at the time and ultimately left to be with him. 6 months later, she left the affair partner after catching him cheating and tried to get back with my father-in-law, but he rejected her as he had moved on and was already dating mother-in-law. She did not take it well and even tried on several occasions to break them apart using very dirty methods, even attempted to involve my father-in-law's sister and her and his parents, who were close friends and neighbors. Both attempts unsuccessful. As of now, my wife is in her room, and I will talk to her when I get my bearings on how to approach this. I also wanted to give her breathing space, so she could process the situation, and we can talk about it with clear heads. Let's see what the community thinks. First commenter. There's nothing to solve here. You've encountered an incredibly malevolent person in your family's life. This isn't a person or situation that can be fixed by any of you, so best not to contact her. Fortunately, your father-in-law has found good, healthy support in his wife and family. That's commendable. My best advice is to listen to your wife when she's ready to talk. She's unable to articulate a rush of awkward and negative feelings, which is completely normal. It's good you are there because you can relate and help her recognize what she's going to in a way that's neither dismissive or coddling her. Good on you for disrupting the dynamic. May your protective instincts serve you both in a long and healthy marriage. The next person says, I think the timing was accidental, and this woman has carried the truth and guilt of how she treated your father-in-law for 34 years, and sees an opportunity to soothe her own guilt by now making everything seem normal, and they were just a couple that used to date, minimizing her choice and the effects on your father-in-law of that choice. Nobody wants to be remembered as a cheater, yet even 34 years later, she still carries that choice. One more comment. She met the woman that effed up and realized it. The woman didn't ambush her. You came to her by chance. So, you're a woman around 50, and you work in a shoe store, and you have some regrets for some things you did when younger. This young woman walks into her store one day, and she looks shockingly like one of those regrets, maybe the biggest one. Her first love, whom she spent part of her childhood and teen years with, and then betrayed for nothing. And he has a daughter, and that could have been her daughter. She's not thinking clearly at all. She confirms that it is, indeed, his daughter, and then there are all these regrets and emotions, and she has to tell someone. She don't want to hurt your wife. Maybe she still lacks the empathy which led her to cheat in the first place, but she just has to say something, to share with someone. I'm sorry your wife was upset by this, but it should just confirm to her that her dad is a good guy and a strong one for not taking a cheater back. These events led to her birth, your marriage. You guys are all lucky to have each other. This woman may have never experienced that because of what she did. I pity her. Yeah, the comments are right here. There's really nothing to solve and nothing for you to do or that you should do. Don't give it any more energy. This woman doesn't deserve it. And although your wife was upset as it can be jarring to hear, rest assured that your father-in-law is a good man and that all is as it should be. All that's to say that the woman is unhinged and was just looking to stir the pot. Update. This is what happened after I posted this. I took my time, and after a while I got to my wife's room. In addition of our shared bedroom, we have separate rooms at home that we use as offices. And I hugged her and told her that I loved her and was there for her when she needed me. She took her time, but in the end, she opened up to me and told me how she feels. She was not upset by the ghost of her father-in-law's past coming to life, but by the way this woman acted. She was so nice, but was asking questions in a very invasive and unwelcome way. And the way she recognized my wife was unsettling. It took her by surprise. This was, and is not, an emotionally fragile person who cannot handle strangers. Hell, she handled my crazy ex, who made an attempt to get back with me many years ago. But she has her limits. I also spoke to my mother-in-law on the phone, and she revealed some more things about this woman. See, in addition to this woman trying to break my in-laws when she found out about them, she did something that got me seething with rage. 4 years after her attempt to get back with father-in-law, she encountered my mother-in-law, my wife, who was a toddler at the time, and my mother-in-law's mother, wife's maternal grandma. Long story short, she made a scene and threw a rock at my mother-in-law. The rock hit my wife in the forehead instead. She was not even 2 at the time. My wife's grandma and some people chased her off. This was the same woman we met. My wife still has the scar on her forehead. This woman was not sorry of what she did. A mother-in-law told my father-in-law's parents and they told hers. From then on out, there were no problems whatsoever. After some time, my anger subsided and I realized that this was not the present issue, and right now my wife needs me, and she was my priority. After dinner and after we put our kids to bed, I told my wife that we were never going to this lady's shop again. We were done with that situation and the day as a whole. We just had to put this behind us, and what better way to do that than sleep on it? After all, the dawn is brighter than the dust. Today after breakfast, I took my wife out for a walk. Our hometown is small, but it has a beautiful park on the south bank of the Danube River. We got there, and we got to our favorite restaurant. It is a 3-story building that has incredible views of the river, and we just spent a good time together. We talked again, and we put this thing behind us. I mean, what else could we do at this point? We got home and everything was okay. We are going to forget about yesterday and this woman. This ghost of the past will remain a ghost. I also decided that I will not tell my father-in-law, as it would serve no purpose at this point. To end this on a cheerful note, the shoes are really good. This sounds like a solid plan, OP. Taking time to spend together and focusing on your relationship is a great way to move forward. It's important to prioritize your own well-being and to create boundaries with people who bring negativity into your lives. I agree with your decision to not involve your father-in-law in this situation at this point. It seems that it would only serve to stir up old wounds without any productive outcome. Overall, it sounds like you handled the situation with empathy and understanding, and I hope that you and your wife can continue to support each other in all aspects of your lives as you move forward. Do you have a similar story? Share with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on Our Space. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you next time. Hey. Time for another out-of-this-world story from Our Space. My wife was cheating on me our entire marriage, picked up an STD that gave her cancer, and died as a result. How do I move on from here? My wife and I met in early 2004. I was 27, and she was 25. She was gorgeous and had a youthful innocence about her. She turned heads everywhere we went. She also seemed genuinely kind and came from what appeared on the surface to be a great family. However, I had to learn the hard way that her beauty was only skin deep. We had a great relationship for the first 6 months, but then red flags started to appear. I ignored them. Later in 2004, she got pregnant. Mine confirmed years later, but began withholding intimacy. She said it would get better and that it was just a phase because of the pregnancy. I believed her and proposed just before our daughter was born in May 2005. We married in 2006, still not having resolved the intimacy issues. She withheld intimacy throughout the marriage, even on the honeymoon. She continued to withhold intimacy, maybe once every 6 months, through the first 3 years of our marriage. The stress for me was unbearable. She did decide to have sex with me one time, however, finally initiating after a 6-month dry spell. She conveniently told me, as I climaxed, that she had begun to take her pill. Welcome our son on May 2009. Later that year, we were shocked when she was diagnosed with head and neck cancer after finding lumps on her neck. After lots of treatment and scans, however, the doctors told us in 2011 that they had misdiagnosed her cancer and that it was, in fact, cervical cancer caused by an STD, HPV. Knowing how little we had sex and that I hadn't been with anyone since before I met her, this was a red flag I couldn't ignore. I snooped on her phone and email and found a trove of emails and texts showing she had numerous affairs starting just months after we got together, leading up to and all the way through the wedding. Then, throughout the marriage, up until her diagnosis. There were texts that indicated she didn't even know whose child our daughter was. Then, more messages indicated she had aborted another person's child just a couple of months after our wedding, one that she had told me and her family was a miscarriage. Worst of all, however, was finding the texts between her and another guy, arguing about how she thought he had given her the HPV that caused her cancer. The enormity of it all was suffocating. When I confronted her, she denied everything. She told me I was crazy, and that maybe that's why she had denied me intimacy. I'm mild-mannered to a fault, which she hated about me. She enjoyed confrontation and often used emotional outbursts to bully me when I would ask why we weren't having sex. She had always had a hard time with accountability, but this was just infuriating. I began to lay out the evidence, starting with the earliest affair. In a dismissive voice, she said, "Oh, you knew." I did not. I then showed more evidence. She would dismiss it as if it hadn't happened, even with the evidence right there in front of her. I'd ask her if that was the extent of it. She'd say yes. Then I'd reveal more evidence and call her on her lies. This happened again and again until finally I just accepted that she had no intention of coming clean or asking for forgiveness. I moved out in October of 2011. Throughout our separation, she would repeatedly try to ask me to move back in by saying things that would make me feel pity for her. "It feels like you're just waiting for me to die." I'm not ashamed to admit that I was. I just wanted to be reunited with my children and move on from the nightmare. I hated her and everything she had done. I didn't even bother filing for divorce. I knew cancer would eventually get her. It did, on November 19th, 2013. She died ugly and slowly, still trying to cover up all her lies and deceit. I raise our 2 children on my own now, and we're thriving. As you can imagine, however, I'm riddled with trust issues that will probably never be resolved. I haven't dated since. My daughter has my wife's old mobile phone, which she has refused to clear off, as she likes to read old text conversations and keep contacts from back then. Unfortunately, this means she has come across the truth many times over, regardless of how thoroughly I clear the worst of the text messages. She's 16 and understands everything that happened. We have a very solid relationship and talk openly about it all. Nevertheless, she consults a therapist regularly to help heal in ways that I can't help her with. My son knows about it all, but is completely disinterested. He's 12 now and was only 4 when she died after all. As a policy, I will not lie to them, even to protect them, as I feel strongly that lies are what led us to where we're at now. I can only imagine the emotional damage if they found out as adults from someone other than me. I've continued to bring the kids up to visit where her family lives, from where we live, about an 8-hour drive, for the holidays and for an extended time during the summers. For the most part, they're good people who are kind and did nothing to deserve being cut off from their grandkids. My kids love them, and they have lots of cousins in their extended family who are the same ages as my kids. They go out of their way to welcome us, and I enjoy their company. The only odd part about all that is that her family has never acknowledged anything that happened. None of the cheating, none of the reasons for the split. In fact, they never even talk about any of it at all, which, for a guy who likes to talk about things to resolve them, is very frustrating and uncomfortable. When we split, she begged me not to tell everyone why, but she said she'd tell her family. I was fine with it, as I always viewed it as a private matter anyway. She then talked trash about me to the kids' friends' parents in addition to the kids' teachers. I only found this out from her text messages after she died. It's not clear at all to me how honest she was with her family, however. Since they never acknowledged it happened, I can only assume they either don't know at all, or they know and it's too difficult for them to talk about. I don't want to cause any pain for her family, but it would like something they have that rightfully belongs to me. The rings, engagement and wedding. It's my assumption that since her mom and her sister cleared her room when she died, one of them took the rings. They probably did this at her request, perhaps to give them to my daughter later in life on a significant occasion. Regardless, I don't view them as ever having belonged to her because her cheating was so pervasive throughout her relationship. They only represent infidelity, and they can never be as meaningful or symbolic of anything to another person as they will be to me when I get rid of them forever. I sacrificed and saved, bought them for her when we had nothing, and I thought we were in love. Had I only known. My question for this crowd is, how do you stop thinking about it all? It has been 8 years since she passed away, and I go to bed at night and never fall asleep. I just rehash the arguments and conversations we had. I think about how I should have handled situations differently, how I should have stood up for myself sooner when the red flags started popping up. I do all this full well knowing there's absolutely nothing I can do about it now. I've aged 24 years in the last 8. I'm 44, but I look 64. At this rate, I won't be here to offer fatherly advice when my kids get married. Maybe have kids of their own. Emotionally, I'd like to achieve a sense of closure and redemption and stop beating myself up for all my blindness during those years of torment. Our first reaction comes from Bodyman70. You have to forgive yourself for not seeing it when it was happening, and honestly, be thankful you didn't. That's what allowed your 2 children to be. Then forgive your ex because she gave you the 2 best things she could. Thank her for those children and let her go. Our next response is from Dankov Z. I don't even have words. I feel you. You need to talk to someone. Find a new friend. Could be online. And talk about this. Someone who listens. And you need to forgive yourself. You did everything you could. You need to realize that. Your words remind me of myself and my ex. You are very strong. I just can't imagine your pain every day. One more thought before moving on from Straight Goods 30. First thing first, you have to let it go. She's no longer here, so there's no reason to keep holding on to this hurt. If you're not seeing a therapist, then you should. One that specializes in infidelity and trauma. They can help you release yourself from the bonds of that failed relationship from marriage. Also, going to her grave and saying what you need to get off your chest, they also provide closure. As for your health, you need to start taking care of yourself. Eat healthy, work out, and meditation for the mind and soul to make sure you're around to watch your grandkids play. On to the next story. I snooped and confirmed my fears. I, male 40, have had suspicions about my wife, female 39, for months now. I have expressed my concerns and fears over this time, and she has reassured me, but nothing in her odd behavior has changed. Today, I had to do something on her phone to make sure it's ready for trade-in. Then I took a minute to snoop. I'm not sure if I was hoping to finally confirm my fears or put my mind at ease, but my fears were confirmed. There are definitive statements that she screwed him one afternoon not too long ago, and she loves him. I showed her what I saw, and she admitted it. We have things to deal with for their kids right now, so the discussion is on hold. I don't know where to go from here. Is it even worth having a discussion? How can I believe anything she says to me? I'm questioning so much right now, and feel like so much of the last 12 years of my life is up in the air. Update. I took my wedding ring off. After spending the last couple of days dissecting the last year and all the lies, deceit, and other BS, I realized that my wife hasn't worn her rings in months. At the time she stopped, her reasoning was because of her weight gain. Not that I'm seeing everything in a new light. In previous episodes of weight gain, she'd always put them on a chain to still have with her. I can't help but feel my own ring is tainted now and represents all the betrayal I've experienced. So, for the first time in over 12 years, I'm not wearing it. Update. Digging with the wrong head. Thinking back of the last few years, I'm 40 male, started to see all the warning signs that I should have seen all along with my soon-to-be ex-wife, 39 female. One sign I definitely should have paid more attention to is the fact that I have only ever experienced performance issues when things were feeling off a few years ago during her emotional affair, the stress of the false reconciliation, and when I began to suspect cheating this time around. I did what I could to power through and convince myself I was just sensitive and overreacting. I should have listened to my body. From now on, I believe red flags will shine a lot brighter, and I'll have to remember that our instincts and physical reactions are there for a reason. Update. One to tell kids and holidays. My soon-to-be ex-wife wants to wait to tell the kids, elementary school age, anything so they can enjoy the holidays one last time. We're stuck living in the same house anyway for a couple of months, so I originally agreed. Mistakenly, I believe this meant she would actually put in more effort than she has in the last year while having her affair. Yesterday, she bailed on a family shopping trip to take a nap. I guess so she could have some rest before leaving for a night out without offering any help with dinner and then staying out overnight, presumably with the affair partner. Am I being selfish if I don't want to keep this secret anymore? Does it really help make things easier for anyone other than her? Edit. Thank you all for your insights. I have done my best to read them all and have ultimately decided that before making any rash decisions, I'm going to consult with a family counselor so that I can have a proper strategy and additional support available for my kids right away. Soon-to-be ex-wife and I have had a conversation and set up a schedule and agreed to our responsibilities when it's our day on said schedule. Additionally, she has agreed not to spend the night elsewhere while we are keeping this information private. I believe she will keep her end of the bargain, and I will make more decisions after I have more information. Update. Today's been a hard day. It's been a roller coaster since D-Day 3 weeks, but today has been especially hard. She met with her lawyer today so we can start getting the papers drawn up. We just finished reviewing some of the questions about the parenting agreement and property division. It all just keeps getting so much more real. I just feel so sad and alone right now. Update. Today's feeling better. I've had some time to work through my thoughts. I got to go on a walk this morning, and tonight I get to hang out with a friend out of the house and without the kids. Another bit of good news. I lost 6 pounds since D-Day. I realized her guilt was causing me to gain weight. All the time she was late getting home or I waited up for her, she would bring home late-night food so we could hang out. Didn't matter that I told her I wasn't hungry or we shouldn't spend the money. I think in her warped head, spending an hour with me eating crappy food made up for leaving me alone for most of the night. Even last night she texted to see if I wanted to order food. I'm very proud of myself for not doing it. Finally confirmed. Emotional affair equals physical affair. Soon-to-be ex-wife. 18 days to drop soon-to-be 39 female. And I, 40 male, still have to live in almost my house together for about 2 more months, so no contact has been nearly impossible. In the interest of moving on as fast as possible, I've decided to not give a crap about anything she does and spend my time caring about my kids and myself. As a result, we found ourselves getting along more peacefully and quietly watching a show on the DVR together. Tonight we ended up having some real conversations, and she ended up confessing that her emotional affair had in fact turned physical a few times before she got caught, as well as a few times in the 4 years since then. My lesson to take into the future is to trust my gut. One of the encounters she told me about was a night that I had long had suspicions about. This knowledge is having a mixed impact on me at the moment. For the past couple months, I've been saying my biggest regret is not leaving when I found out about the emotional affair, and that regret is now deepened. On the flip side, I feel a sense of vindication that it's okay to act on my feelings, gut, when I know something is off, and I have to trust myself at least as much as I trust others. Sorry for the rambling. It does help to write this down and get some perspective. On to the next story. My cheater dad. So my dad is a cheater, and I've known about it since 3rd grade. At that time, I played with his BlackBerry. This happened around 10 years ago. I found one of the messages is with a woman and her profile picture is her with a baby. At that time, I didn't think much after all. Many women take a picture with a baby. The content of the text is really personal stuff like, "Are you being honest with me? When you come home, buy some food for me." After reading their text, I know for sure that my dad cheated on my mom, and it is a big shock. Because just a year ago, my dad got into a fight at a bar and got smashed with 3 or 4 glasses and a chair. From what I remember in a newspaper, he ended up losing his left eye and needed to wear a fake eye. And for months, my mom and older sister stayed at the hospital taking care of him. So the audacity for him to cheat on my mom is a big shock. After seeing the message, I immediately tell my sisters, and they were also in shock, but didn't say much. But I still talk normally with my father. Then again, even before knowing this, I and my sisters really talk to him because he's almost never at home. Gone at 9 a.m. and home by 3 a.m. A few months went by, and one day I saw my mom folding clothes, alone, in the dark. So I help her, and I just burst it all to her. She didn't react at all. The next day, she is gone. Even my grandma, who always wakes up at 5 a.m., didn't see her go. I was so scared, but she did come back at late night. A few days passed by, and one night my mom wakes me up and asks me which woman I was talking about. I show it to her and never heard about it again. Obviously, my dad didn't stay together with the woman, but he did cheat on my mom with many other women for the past years. Fun fact, not long after I told my mom, we found out she is pregnant with my brother. 10 years passed, and last year I found out, or got confirmation, that I have a half-sister, 2 years older than my youngest brother. My younger sister, being the stalker she is, searched through all her social media and found out her life is much better than us, having a birthday party at a restaurant when we never even have cake and presents at our birthday, and the kid always asks for money from my dad for bills and things she wants to buy. My mom knew about her, but I don't know since when. My dad still cheats with many younger women, even have their nudes and photo of them going on dates. Hey, time for an out-of-this-world story from our space. Do you feel trapped in a relationship? Of course, feeling trapped in a state of mind. No one needs consent to leave a relationship. And yet, millions of people remain in unhappy relationships that range from empty to abusive for many reasons. Today on our space, Ice Cold Sweetheart turns sour. The way out is near. Today, we give you that courage you need to leave. My, male 32, Ice Cold Sweetheart wife, female 31, cheated on me for years with multiple men. I'm new here to Reddit, in general, but found this sub after I started dating my current wife, a Redditor. And it's been eye-opening to read what everyone's gone through. I decided to share my story of my ex-wife, Elle, as a kind of airing out of the whole thing, to help myself order my thoughts on everything. I'm also hoping to help out anyone on here who's currently in a relationship with a wayward spouse and isn't sure what to do. Maybe this will help push you to get out of a toxic spot and take what you deserve from life. I grew up on a 26-acre horse farm out in Aurora, Ohio. Growing up, I was a loner and preferred reading books to talking to people. Only ever had a few girlfriends, if middle school even counts, and didn't really put the effort in to actually have a relationship with much of anyone besides a few close friends. My parents had gotten divorced when I was young. I lived with my mom and saw Dad every other weekend. This did have an effect on me growing up, mainly that I had a hard time knowing what a healthy relationship looked like, and didn't really have time with Dad to have a healthy male role model. Mom had a series of boyfriends, some of which were physically abusive to my brother and I. I remember getting backhanded across a room at 10 by one of them, or belted anytime anything at all was out of order. Another one used glue traps for the mice in the garage, and made us watch when he'd cut them off the traps, which he'd do by cutting all their legs off before throwing the still living, legless mouse in the trash can. Real gem, that one. I learned very quickly to just keep my mouth shut and act generally pleasant, because anything else might get me punished, usually hit. This also made me develop an unhealthy attitude of just grin and bear it. Don't have issues, and if people were bad to me, I'd just take it. Whenever I could, I would recess into myself and my books. I was a voracious reader. Had over 1,000 books on 5 double-stacked bookshelves in my bedroom. I'd hide in there in the winter, once all the chores were done. Anytime the weather was good enough, I'd be outside, reading in the forest, out in the hayfield, and spent a lot of time over in the old cemetery across our field. It was beautiful, but looking back, probably not the most healthy lifestyle. Sorry for the backdrop dump, but through some therapy, I've come to realize that my upbringing put me in a vulnerable spot for staying with abusive partners. My hang-ups and coping mechanisms just led me to tolerate a lot of intolerable behavior from people. Elle and I met when we were in our mid-teens, at a church lock-in that neither of us wanted to be at, of all things, and hit it off right off the bat. She was one of those mid-zeros quirky girls, writing weird poetry, yelling spork, all the standard stuff at the time, and decently attractive curly hair. She came up and challenged me to an air hockey game, and you know how the rest of that story goes. We dated pretty much exclusively for the next 7 years, finished high school together, went to the same college, even got the same scholarship to attend the same local state college. We had our ups and downs, but I put that down just how relationships must be. She was erratic at the best of times, tried isolating me from the few friends I had because they were jealous of her taking all my time. She'd cry over the smallest stuff, hit me when she was mad over things I had nothing to do with, and just generally pester me to shower her with love. She needed constant validation from everyone around her, and wasn't too shy about trying to get it. I put up with all this because she was my first real girlfriend, and she was great at just minimizing her bad behavior into something I was just too dumb to get. I just think she was being irrational, but would put up with it to get back to our normal lives. College was where the more obvious red flags started coming. Within a few months of her coming to college, she was constantly hanging around with other dudes in our dorm, honors dorm. They were all male and female suites that shared a building. I would ask if we were still good and get positive answers, but then find her sitting on some guy's lap in his room later that night. Multiple times I caught her making out with randoms and just generally behaving inappropriately with guys. After I told her everything I'd seen and threatened to break up with her if she didn't tell me the truth, it came out that she'd given one other guy oral, which she described in excruciating detail. She said she was obsessed with him because, no lie, he looks like the guy from Napoleon Dynamite and is just really hot. Yes, should have ended everything we had right there for that comment alone, but we'd been together for nearly 5 years at that point, so I thought we could fix things and reconcile. I confronted the guy, she cut off contact, and things got better for a bit. I ended up getting a decent job at the local construction company my junior year of college and saved up enough in 6 months to make our down payment on a house. This was in 2008 in an older steel town, so housing values were pretty much rock bottom. I talked it over with Elle and we decided to buy a house fairly close to our school and just start our life together while we finished up college. We also got engaged shortly after moving in. I thought that by removing her from the co-ed dorm, I'd fix her cheating issues, and it really did seem to work for a bit. All in all, it seemed like life was looking up. There was some good years for a while. She got a job selling books, then went on for a graduate degree. Actually, she tried 4 different graduate degrees, but kept quitting because they weren't what she wanted to do. I paid for the ones she couldn't get a scholarship or student loans for, and just generally supported her in her decisions. We got a dog and some cats. I kept working at the same construction job, for a boss I hated, but it paid the bills. Got married in 2010 when we were 23. Kids, don't get married young. You don't know what a good relationship is yet. I want to get across here that it was exactly what I thought a good life was. I'd get up early, give her a kiss and head into work, where I'd occasionally get reprimanded at for not reading my boss's mind. I'd do drafting and job takeoffs, or going to a job site and wear myself out doing whatever work they needed, since it was a small business and everyone wore a lot of hats. Then I'd come home, let the dog out, and listen to Elle talk about her day. If I complained about my day, I wasn't being manly enough and was just adding to her stress. So I'd just start making dinner or mow the lawn, whatever. Rinse and repeat. I thought this was completely normal and made it even better than average. The wheels really started to come off, though. I didn't know it for a while, when Elle got a new job with a local energy company doing mapping. She was finally making more than minimum wage and was only there for a few months before her boss's boss took notice of her. I don't think it was 4 months before suddenly she's getting a job as a process assistant in a large nearby city, which was a 2-hour drive for her. I'm not sure of the details, but within those same few months, she started an emotional and eventually physical affair with her new boss. Still didn't know what to think of this, since the guy was 30 years older than her, was recently separated from his wife, and was literally living in his mom's basement. I noticed she was withdrawing more than usual from the relationship, but figured it was the stress from a big corporate job and the drive. I tried putting in more effort, surprising her with gifts and stuff, but nothing really landed. Again, I just figured she'd get used to the work and things would go back to normal. In January 2013, we moved to Cleveland to be closer to her work. I found a new and much better job. We got a really nice place for less than market price, and everything was shiny again. Sure, she had to work really late quite often, but that's corporate. She'd gotten a pay raise for her excellent work. Elle was making new work friends and was finally coming out of her shell a bit. Elle also started going out with work friends a lot and quickly started staying out very late and coming home drunk as a skunk, which led to more than a few fights between us. Things deteriorated, and again we just settled into a new equilibrium where we talked less to each other, and when we did talk, it would be the most milquetoast of topics. In December of 2014, we went down to see her parents in Texas and had a great trip. It really seemed to rekindle some of those feelings we'd been missing, and it really made me realize that things were more messed up in a relationship than I thought. But we got back, I had a real moment with Elle where I told her that I really had a great time and want to keep being as invested in each other as we were on this trip. I felt like I had a kind of epiphany where I knew we could change our relationship for the better, and I was inviting her to help me with it. She screamed, straight up looked at me with panicked eyes, stuttered, screamed, and ran away down to the basement. I followed, trying to figure out just what I had said that would have led to that reaction, which led her to accusing me of cornering her in the basement. I backed off, and she, to tears, tells me that she doesn't deserve love. I'm trying to ask her what this is about, get nothing from her, and we finally just go into separate rooms to calm down. The next day, I tried to bring it up, and she told me in no uncertain terms that none of that happened, and if I bring it up again, she's leaving. Straight up denied that she freaked out that we had even seen each other the day before. I, obviously, got really suspicious that something was up after that point, but I didn't really think it was cheating. More just that she was being insecure. She'd always been very insecure in general, just never to a level that made her freak out like that. After that episode, I decided that my teenage self was correct, that having a roommate who was occasionally funny and sometimes slept with me was about as good a relationship as I would ever get. I had a prejudice against divorce after seeing how my mom's life had turned out afterward, so I decided I'd just make this work however I could. The staying out, drinking, and random outbursts kept going on her end, and I decided to just never bring up my feelings unless she asked directly. Meanwhile, I decided to work on myself first, to be a better, more interesting partner. I started building up my home gym, working out, got into backpacking and woodworking, things that I always kind of liked but never had time for. Elle had complained that I had no hobbies and wasn't interesting enough for her around this time, so I took her at her word that this would help more than actually talking about her issues. This is one of the few good things that came out of the relationship, as I'm still pretty physically fit and look much better than ever before in my life. Plus, my woodworking and turning have turned into a lot of useful life skills. D-Day was April of 2015. She came home from a night out with friends, insanely drunk. I'm still not sure how she made it home. She threw up multiple times while I held her hair, then passed out on the floor by the toilet. She was so drunk, she would breathe in these odd gasps, and I thought she was just going to stop breathing at one point. I thought about calling the ambulance, but just decided to wait it out a bit. She had her phone beside her on the floor and kept getting texts, which I ignored for a while. Finally, there was probably someone checking to see if she got home okay, so I decided to open it with her thumbprint and respond. The texts are all from her boss, and the last one was something along the lines of, "You only went home because you're mad I made you stop. We can't do it in the office anymore. F will catch us." I immediately understand what is happening and feel like the stupidest dude ever that I didn't put it together at any point in the last 2 to 3 years. I still feel dumb about it. We were young, but that's no excuse to be so naive and checked out about your marriage. I had always just assumed we had grown distant, but I never once thought of cheating on her and just assumed she felt the same way. I start going through all her texts with him and see that this has been going on for a while. Though it's unclear when it went from being an emotional affair instead of a good working relationship, and then again on when the physical stuff started. I did find a message from earlier that same night, between pics down her shirt from the bar where they were at, where they were talking about the next time they'd meet up, just a week or so away. I decided that if I tell her anything at this point, she's going to flip it around into me snooping and misreading, or misremembering what I read, since I have a terrible memory, guessing now that was just her gaslighting me to cover up her own indiscretions. Instead of confronting her, I go out and buy a voice recorder, and spend a few days placing it in her car before work to find out a good and hidden spot and test how long it can record for. I also scope out where they're planning on meeting up so I can find it the day of. The day before the meetup, she had told me she needed to go to a separate nearby town for work and that she'd be late coming home. I tell her it's fine and take your time coming home. Inside I was all nerves, but apparently held it together enough to keep her from being suspicious. The hours pass, then around 6 p.m. I head out and drive to a spot near the bar they're meeting at, and wham, there they are, both in her car, pawing each other and making out. I just drove away, went home, had some shots and cried. She came home later that night and I didn't say anything about it, just made us some dinner. She was all bubbly and how well her meeting had gone, thanked me for being understanding. After she went to bed, I went out and got the voice recorder and listened through it, and heard her begging to go back to that office to do the deed, amongst other things. I couldn't even figure out how to react. She was never like this at home and sounded nearly deranged in how much she wanted to be with him. I listened through this all, go in and wake her up and tell her we need to talk. I ask if she's cheating. She denies. I ask her about the name of the bar she was at. She denies even knowing what it is. I tell her I was there earlier today and saw some interesting things. She immediately asks if I followed her. How could I? And, "Is there a tracker in my car? You have to tell me. I'm going to have a panic attack. You can't just track me." Again, insane. I tell her I read the texts from a few weeks ago and went to the bar where she said she was meeting S, her boss. This turns into opening her phone to show me no such texts exist anymore, which I think she thought would negate the fact I went there and saw them. So crazy thinking about it. Finally, she said that yes, she's been seeing S. They've been together a few times, and finally, if I make her stop seeing him, she won't love me anymore. Somehow this works on me. I had no self-confidence, didn't like divorce as an institution, and figured being with someone to split the bills was better than being alone. And for a few months, that was it. She'd have meetups with him. I would try to talk her out of it. There were crazy moments. S had other girlfriends and L knew about them and got jealous of them. One time she came home, sobbing, and I hugged her while she told me that she thought S was breaking up with her for someone else. I just want still inside. I don't think I felt anything other than that kind of ironic humor in it, like an eye-rolling feeling. Still don't know why I stuck around after that. And of course, they kept seeing each other. Around this point, she also started having one-night stands with random other guys. I found out about a few of them over the years and suspect a few more. Finally, I drove myself into having a panic disorder and decided enough was enough. I gave her the voice recorder and demanded she break it off with S and record her herself while she's telling him, or I'm out. She cries, but finally relents. The next day, she does what I asked. When S found out, I knew he immediately panicked, and I got to watch those texts come in on L's new Apple Watch that she didn't realize doesn't delete texts that you remove from your phone. Things settled a bit, and we went to marriage counseling for a session. I agreed to not tell the counselor about her infidelity this session, as the condition for L to even go. The counselor then spent the whole session telling me I was smothering L by wanting to go through her phone and know where she's at, which I only started doing after the cheating. We never went back. That was 2015 to 2016. After that, we stayed together, and about twice a year, I'd find some new infidelity. Once she was drunk and did oral on a guy she worked with in the bathroom. Once on a work trip out of state, she started texting a guy and started the weirdest emotional affair I've ever heard of. A decent chunk of his texts are about how his grandma had to wipe his butt until he was in his mid-teens, and he liked it. The whole time I just got used to pain shopping. It almost became a game for us, where she'd find out how I found out, would swear to stop seeing you're talking to screwing so-and-so while disconnecting her Apple Watch and not using her car, etc. Looking back, I just kind of got used to it. I checked out of the relationship in any real sense. Funny enough, we'd have fights about me not being invested in the relationship during this time too. I finally had enough when I got a message out of the blue from one of her coworkers' wives, N. She'd caught her husband and L texting and snapping. She sent screenshots of them to me and said that she wanted me to know. The screenshots really drove home to me that L wasn't just prone to straying or was making mistakes over and over. I know, it's dumb, but when you're in a relationship, if you excuse one thing, it gets easier the next time. And I had gotten to the point of excusing everything. We'd had our ritual fight over it. She'd end the affair, and the cycle begins again in a few months. In the screenshots from N, L was saying things like, "I should have done you the first time I saw you," setting up meetings, etc. I confronted L with the texts, and her first reaction was annoyance that the guy didn't hide it from his wife better. It blew my mind. And when I was talking to N, it was obvious she was crushed. They had 2 kids, and her husband's actions were likely going to tear the family apart. And here's my loving wife mad that he was too dumb to hide it properly, and she knew he couldn't handle this sort of relationship. N sent me some texts later on after the affair was in the open of L telling the guy that there's basically a code of conduct for cheaters and this guy didn't follow the rules. I snapped out of it. Like I finally felt awake after 6 years of affairs and 10 years before that of just general abuse and incoherence. I moved into the finished half of the basement, slept on an air mattress by my gem, and started drawing up dissolution papers. I figured if the dissolution failed, I could always hire an attorney and get a divorce. I ghosted L as hard as I could being in the same home, 100% gray rock. Elle started love-bombing me, in her own weird way. One time I got home from work, and she'd bought a lamp for the basement and put it by my air mattress. Still the sweetest thing she'd ever done for me. To drive home everything, a few days later, she's working from home in the afternoon and she doesn't hear me go into the kitchen for a drink. I can hear she's on a speakerphone on the couch, and it's S. Still her boss and the guy all of this started with. I hear him ask if she's alone, and she says yes. I think, really? Really? Right now, as I'm prepping the dissolution in the same house, she's going to indulge this guy. I creep closer and listen in. He starts talking about how he's never done it in a car in an automated car wash, and thinks that would be fun. What the F? Just like, where does she find these guys? I just walk in, get behind her on the couch and yell, "Hi, S. Nice hearing from you." L jumps and nearly falls off the couch. S just immediately hangs up, and I laugh and go to put on my shoes. L yells and, "Damn, that's rude." I laugh again and get my coat. Elle asks where I'm going. I say, out. I must have said it in a way where she finally got it that we are done. We have been done, and now I'm just wrapping it up. She runs up and blocks the door. I tell her to move, and she gets this weird little smile on her face. I still remember it. Like, all of this was still a game. That if she blocks the door, then I'll just have to stay, and we'll stay being married. That her plan to keep me by physically blocking the door has no chance of failing, and I'm just stuck now. I grabbed her by the shoulders and picked her up and moved her, just feet off the floor, right over to the side of the door, then gently back down on her feet. Told her if she tries to keep me here, I will take her apart, because I don't have it in me anymore to deal with her, and all the anger I'd been pushing down my whole life was still all right there. I had never touched her violently, and still never have, but that was the closest I got. I drove off to one of my favorite local bars, hung out with friends I'd been making the last few years. I texted Elle that I knew she'd have another work trip coming up that next week, and that when she got back, she wouldn't be welcome back in the house. Lucky me, she never came back. Moved in with the guy she'd been seeing down there, where they both lived in his brother's dining room since said guy was unemployed and living with his brother. Again, gems. Her cheating life was regular gem mine. I only saw her a few times after that. She signed the paperwork I sent her with next to no changes. I used the threat that her company would fire both her and her boss if I told them of the relationship they'd carried on if she tried to be difficult, which got me the house, my car, and less than half of the over $20,000 in credit card debt I didn't know she'd racked up. Also, none of my retirement accounts got touched, which is a blessing. She came back to Ohio to sign the paperwork in December of 2019 and brought her new guy, which was about as awkward as you'd expect. New guy seemed to think that I was at fault for the divorce, for being abusive, and he was there in case I got violent. Again, I had never hurt her, and that includes when she'd get violent with me. I'd just pin her arms and wait for her to stop trying to hit me. I never told him that she'd cheated on me because I'm pretty sure he was one of the other guys she did it with, so I'm thinking he already knows. At the time she came back for her stuff that was still in the house, while I watched her pack up. A few months had passed. She told me she got a new apartment, and that new guy had moved in without asking. She found out when he was helping her move and sat the urn with his dead dad in it on her table. She gave me the weird, "Help me" look, and I just laughed. After that, I didn't see her again. Within a week of the divorce, I got cold approached by a girl at a concert and got her number. Then again, at a local event. Within a month, I was actively dating 4 people, all of which were better than Elle in every way. My friend said that I had that fresh on the market vibe. I was happy for the first time in a very long time, and it made it easy to attract people. I calmed down a bit on the dating, though I did have a few girlfriends. Doubled down on my workout routine. Went to Peru and hiked the Cordillera Blanca Mountains, and almost got stuck there when C-19 hit. Got into my ancestry after a 23andMe test, and found a weird little utopian commune that was bounded by a guy with my last name, though it's mostly historical buildings now. I tried to say in conduct of the last few years, sometimes for actual important things, mostly bull just trying to keep me in her life somehow. I ignore it, though I've got some funny insights. Like how the new guy immediately started fake proposing multiple times a week. It was freaking her out. She texted me once saying that taxes suck as a single, so she's getting married for tax reasons. When she found out I had found someone and gotten engaged, she sent a congratulations card to the house that she had hand-painted herself, which immediately went into the trash. Or the fact that new guy was recently diagnosed with NS. I don't see Elle sticking around and suddenly finding her caring side to take care of a dude 10 years her senior with a neurological issue. In August of 2020, I encountered my current wife, C. She's amazing. I'd gotten out of a bad marriage with a guy who seems a mirror image of Elle. We hit it off when I was talking with a buddy of mine and I said, "I'm just looking for someone normal." She heard me and we both looked at each other for a second with a funny, "Me too" look. Got married after 2 years of dating this last September, and we've never even fought once in the last year. She takes care of me, I take care of her. We talk every day and it's always beautiful. It's really tough to describe, but she's the one. I'm doing much better now. I look back on all that, on literally half of my life, and wonder why I stayed for so long and through so much, especially when it was so easy to find someone so perfect afterwards. If any of you have made it this far and are currently in a bad relationship and wondering what to do, I get it. I think most of us get it. You put up with the stuff that you think you never would. You think this person you've put so much effort into can't be doing this on purpose. They'll excuse next to anything. You actively make yourself into a doormat. It's not worth it. Just get out because whatever led to cheating once, it'll happen again. And again after that. Cheaters will tell themselves whatever they need to not feel bad about themselves and their actions. They'll always justify it, to themselves and to you, and you'll always wonder what they're doing when they're not with you. You deserve better. So leave, cut losses, do whatever you need to. My hang-up on divorce and low self-confidence kept me in way longer than I ever should have, and nothing that happened in the relationship in the years after I found out helped me in any way. The only person that can get you into a better headspace is yourself, and focusing on you and the people that actually care about you. It gets better once you have. Let's see how the community responds to this story. Kaiser93 says, "Dude, you endured way too much. Glad you got out. Imagine co-parenting with Elle. Holy crap, that would have been a nightmare." The OP responds, "I didn't even mention the time she surprised me by getting a tubal removal so she couldn't have kids. She just called me and told me I'd need to pick her up after work from the hospital. Very, very happy that kids never happened with her." Atre1D3S says, "Don't worry about the length. I can imagine the words just exploded onto the keyboard. Profession to read a full-length, unabridged version of your journey. The pain is real and long-lasting. I'm glad life is on the up for you these days, and your words are an inspiration. First of all, abuse is never okay. Abuse is abuse. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that as a child, and then to think that was a norm as you entered into a relationship. No one should ever hit you and get away with it. You weren't in a relationship at all. You are in a prison. To not even be able to talk about your day or how you're feeling or doing, that's not okay. Your partner should be there to support you no matter what day you're having. I'm so sorry that she thought the problem was you. That's not the case at all. It enrages me to think that this woman had this effect on you, your self-esteem, and how trapped you felt. There's always a way out. If you aren't happy, you can always leave. The road may not be an easy one after. It may be a challenge, but it's better than staying in a loveless prison cell where you can't even be yourself. A relationship should be the safest place for you. You don't have to be a better, more interesting partner for the right partner. I hate how she did this to you. I hate how you felt like you couldn't leave. That's not marriage, and that's certainly not love. You deserve to be happy, and you deserve someone who's going to respect you and love you. You shouldn't ever subject yourself to such disgusting behavior. What are your thoughts? Thank you for joining us today in our space. Like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. We'd hate for you to miss out. Oh, and if you want to listen to me read more stories, check out Our Lounge, where I feature a larger variety of non-cheating related stories. See you there. Hey. Time for another out-of-this-world story from our space. I tried to save our marriage, but my cheating wife is out of hand. My wife and I met on vacation in 2014. We dated long distance for 6 months before she moved up to be with me, since I couldn't relocate due to having a child already with my ex. She claims she feels like I pressured her to come up because she was afraid I was going to cheat on her because of how much I talked about sex. To me, it was just one of the ways we could feel closer together. We watched Netflix while on video chat together almost every night for almost 6 months, among other things. We would alternate traveling every month to physically see each other. We dated for 2 years before I proposed, and she said yes. Sorry for the long backstory. But now I find out she's been cheating with other people online and posting about wanting the attention of other guys. I confronted her, and she apologized, saying she felt that I have been neglecting her for the past year or so, as she's not sure if she's in love with me anymore. As far as I can tell, she never physically cheated. But am I wrong feeling the betrayal? She refused to let me see her phone when I confronted her, as if she claims the messages were platonic and just about how unhappy she is. Why wouldn't she show me her phone to prove to me that her messages were nothing to worry about? All I can think about every day, all day, is who she is talking to. Has she met any of them? Every time I see her on the phone, I'm wondering who she's messaging now, etc. It's terrible. I can't focus on work or my son. She feels like she can't be away from her family anymore, even though, being a 9-hour drive away, we visit them 4 to 5 times a year. I've made it a priority to see her family as much as possible. I want to get through this, but I fear it's pointless, and nothing we do will ever allow me to trust her again. On top of it all, it seems like I am doing all the heavy lifting and tried to make it work. Now it's all really fresh and only came out 4 days ago. But I lived every day this week in utter darkness and despair. Any advice how I can trust her again when she doesn't seem to be doing anything to earn that trust back? I'm just so lost, so hurt. She keeps blaming me for it because I was neglecting her needs. It's been a real stressful year or so with my job and depression, etc. But instead of trying to work on us, she went outside the relationship. To be fair, she did try to talk about how she feels like just a roommate sometimes, but when my depression kicks in, so does my insomnia, and I won't sleep for 3 to 4 days straight. But she could have planned a date night instead of always relying on me to do it, even knowing that I have been neglecting her. I just feel like at any point that the last year, she could have stepped up her game since I was in a mental crisis that I couldn't get myself out of. I don't know what I'm doing here. I know what I'm looking for. I want my wife back. I want to trust her again. I want her to love me again. Sorry for the longer post and stream of consciousness. Update 1. Turns out, you all were right. She's been talking to way more guys than she told me about, sending nudes, saying I love you to them, etc. My heart is destroyed. I don't think she wants this to work. I think she wants an out. I don't know how I'm going to pick up the pieces. All right, let's get some advice, and then a final update. Kernock says, you can't save a marriage if only one partner is interested in saving it. She has no desire to save your marriage, and instead destroys it further by making you responsible for her cheating, for the decision she made to cheat on you. That she isn't willing to show you her phone tells all, in my opinion. What you would find there would probably be stuff that you couldn't handle, and most of it all would show clearly how long and deep her cheating has already progressed. If she isn't interested in that, then there is not much you can do except of telling her that you don't want to live in a marriage where you get cheated on as soon as the winds get a little stronger, and that you will meet with a lawyer. Maybe that will make her understand what she is about to lose. Though by now, she surely already has deleted all proof of what she did from her phone, so you will never know the full truth. Which also means, expect that the worst happened and take it from there. You are worth so much more than to be treated this way. Final update. So, she admitted everything to me. So after talking to one of the guys, my wife was messaging and finding out that they had actually met up, and it wasn't just messaging. We stayed up all night talking. She came clean that she had met up with 2 guys and had oral sex with him. She won't let me go down on her and won't go down on me, by the way. She fell for both of them. The one guy and I had a real man-to-man conversation, and he agreed to back off and talk to her and be completely honest with me about everything. I'm trying to understand how, with being in as much pain as I'm in, and how hurt I am. Why does my heart still want to be with her? Why am I still in love with her? Help me understand how that's possible. One more quick comment before the next story. Common Leadership 48 says, "She fell for both of them. Sorry, my friend, but you are grieving the end of your relationship with your wife. That's why you're hurting right now. As soon as reality smacks you in the face, that hurt will change to anger, then indifference. I assume you have no kids, so you should immediately cut contact with her and get away what you can. She's already checked out of your marriage." 13 years marriage. Wife just cheated. Been married 13 years to the love of my life. Things have been tough due to COVID, both losing jobs. I had a total hip replacement at the age of 36, and I guess we drifted apart. I found out my wife lied to me one day when I was going through the dash cam footage and seeing instead of being at work, she had gone on an 8-hour drive with a man she has been Snapchatting for the last couple of years that I thought was just a friend. He is engaged, so I didn't think anything of the two of them messaging, even though it hurt a little. My wife started acting weird at the end of February, and it wasn't until April I found out about the drive. She said nothing happened, blah blah blah. You know the story. Anyways, I pushed my thoughts down, and the last 5 weeks have been great. We started couples therapy, been acting like we first met, and can't keep our hands off each other. It's been great. But in the back of my mind, I always had the feeling I'm being lied to. This weekend, she is off seeing family, so I looked on her laptop. My heart dropped when I seen a hotel reservation for the date that she was meant to be doing a night shift back in March. Sure enough, it was with the guy she had been talking to. I'm heartbroken. Edit. Thanks for all the responses and PMs, guys. I got around an hour's sleep and I still don't know what I'm going to do. I've tried looking this guy up on Facebook and he has blocked me, and he has also somehow blocked his fiance's account from me, so I only know her first name. I need to find another way to find her name and call her. Edit 2. I would love nothing more than to just disappear. I suffer with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. I've alienated all the friends I had and my immediate family. I'm reduced to talking to strangers on Reddit. I've spent a lot of my adult life in such dark places mentally, and I don't know how I'm still here. I want to thank you guys for the kind messages of support and all the private messages you guys have sent. I can't respond to them all, but it's the most anyone has shown any interest in me for a long time. Edit 3. So she told the guy she slept with's fiance what happened. Send her screenshots. This is before I messaged her as well. Turns out, she believes her partner's lies and that it never happened, even though his name is down on the hotel reservation along with my wife. FML. Edit 4. I have made a list of questions that she needs to answer. At the moment, it's like 30 questions long. Will be tough to hear. I will ask these questions before I look for her phone. If she lies and I find something, she's out. I'm quite tech savvy and know a few tricks. If I suspect she lies, she is out. I have made a list of rules. If she breaks them, she's out. I have here a list of terms if we split. If she doesn't like them, she's out. If after all that, I don't like what I hear, I'm out of the house tonight and won't come back. Any suggestions on stuff or terms I should set for her to help build trust? Well, he asked a question. Let's see what the community thinks. Quote and Booby says, "Sorry, but you know what to do next? First, make some screenshots. Second, go to the doctor and get your health checked. Third, have a talk with a lawyer on what to do next. If you want to try to reconcile, then put your evidence into her face and see how she reacts. But if you want a divorce, I would not tell her and only show it to her when you serve her. Do not forget to tell the wife or girlfriend of the guy what you found out." The OP responds, I spoke to get her on the phone and kept asking for the truth to see if she would own up. Eventually, she did without me saying what evidence I had. I have the screenshots. I'm trying to get help for my mental condition, but right now, that isn't helping. I am seriously considering telling the guy's fiance tomorrow and just send the screenshot of the hotel booking. Active Explorer 8498 says, Hey my friend, I remember when I found out about my ex's affair, the absolute gut-wrenching feeling I had. It was worse than anything I've felt in my life, including the news of the death of close family. I know how painful it is for you and the absolute devastation it can wreak on your mental health and self-esteem. I've been right where you are in that very moment. Many of us here have. The one thing I regret about the entire situation, the only thing I regret, was not kicking her ass to the curb the second I found out. The kindness and understanding I showed her and internalizing her cheating into making it my own fault gnaws at me every time I cast myself back to that horrible time in my life. I wasted a year of my life stalling my healing and rubbing salt into the wounds when I could have been getting over it and finding opportunities with new and better people. I missed a chance to date a wonderful, beautiful woman who I knew for a fact was into me because I was too busy giving my time to my cheating trash partner, thinking for some reason that I could never do better than the lying abuser she was. Learn from my mistake and be ruthless in cutting her out of your life. Go nuclear and send everything to that crap-stained fiancé. She deserves to know what she's doing to get married to a greasy trash so she can move on with her own life. I know your world seems so utterly bleak right now, but just have an action plan and go through the steps and you will feel so freaking proud of yourself later on. Believe me, life does get better from here.